What is up, guys? It's Doo Poker here, back for another video. Today we are going to be comparing GTO Preflop ranges to MDA Preflop ranges. This is part one of the series. In this spot, we are going to be looking at the big blind 3-bet versus a button RFI. We're going to look at theory, and then we're going to look at MDA, and we're going to see how they differ. And then we're going to node lock the MDA preflop to see what our continuing range should be as the button. So we are in a very common spot. We RFI on the button 2.5x, small blind folds, and the big blind 3-bets. Now we know from theory that the big blind 3-bet is anywhere from 14 to 15% depending on sizing. Here it is 14.6%. Now what do you think MDA preflop goes here as far as frequencies? Do you think it's going to be higher or lower? Well, let's look at the range composition. Let's look at the range that the big blind is 3-betting in theory. There's a lot of King X suited hands, a lot of 10x suited hands, hands like Ace 5 off, Ace 9 off. Do you think people are 3-betting these hands like Ace 8 off at 39% frequency? Probably not. So when we look at the data, I'm going to show you the MDA preflop. We see in the big blind 3-bet versus button, the frequency is only 11%, which is a far cry from 14.6%. And we also want to look at the range composition. The range composition is not the same. These hands like King 4 suited, King 7 suited are very low frequency in reality, while hands like Ace Queen off, Ace Jack off are going to be much higher. We see here that Ace Jack off is actually called in theory more than 3-bet, but population is going to do the opposite. They're going to 3-bet a hand like Ace Jack off more than they call. So what we need to do is we need to node lock a more realistic range. But first, let's go to notes. So let's go to notes. We see here that the big blind 3-bet is going to be 11% in reality versus 14.6% in theory. So we want to be over folding. What we realize is when we look at the range composition, let's take a hand like Ace 10 suited and compare it versus 10-6 suited. We see Ace 10 suited is going to be 3-bet around 29.5% of the time, and 10-6 is 47.5%. Now, disregard this actually. But the point of the matter is this. The point is hands like 10-6 suited are not going to be in a realistic 3-bet range as often as Ace 10 suited, because we can look at range composition. Let's look at range composition. What do you notice? You notice that Ace 10 suited, the times that we 3-bet from the big blind, it shows up 5,976 times. Now if you compare that to 10-6 suited, it only shows up 245 times. So what is that discrepancy? What is that discrepancy? Now, we don't know if this is exact because of card distribution. It could be that 10-6 suited was not as evenly distributed as Ace 10 suited, but this is a rough estimate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this number, 5,976, and then I'm going to divide it by this number, which is 245. And we see that Ace 10 suited in reality is 3-bet more than 24 times that of 10-6 suited. But in theory, 10-6 suited is supposed to be 3-bet more often. So what we need to do is we need to node lock to a more realistic strategy. So what I did was I went into GTO Wizard Elite and I node locked an 11% range that I think is realistic. I took out the 10-6 suiteds and I put in more hands like Ace Jack off and hands like Ace 10 suited, Ace Jack suited, Ace 5 suited. So what we're going to see here is we're going to see in theory, you should be folding around 60%, but with the new node-locked preflop sim, we should be folding around 82%. We no longer call hands like ace-5 suited, hands like queen-10 suited, because these hands are going to be dominated. We do not want to be dominated in the 3-bet pot, because if we hit top pair, we're going to get stacked in a lot of runouts. So it's really important to play preflop correctly and to fold these weak ace-x suited hands, because when we look at the range composition, it's very ace-x heavy. It's very ace-queen heavy, ace-jack suited, ace-10 suited. You do not want to be calling with the weak ace-x suited, because when an ace comes, you're going to lose your stack very often. Same thing with a hand like queen-10 suited, hand like queen-9 suited. They're very king-queen, ace-queen heavy, because in practice, people 3-bet linear. In theory, people or computers 3-bet polarized. So that is the main difference. You need to be much tighter versus a range. So let's recap this. We should be folding a lot more because of 3 reasons. The frequency is around 11% versus theory, which is 14 to 15. The big blind 3-bet range composition is much stronger than theory. Population is 3-betting more linear hands and less polar hands like 10-6 suited. In this calculation, I actually compared the two, and we see that ace-10 suited is 25 times or 24 times more likely to 3-bet than 10-6 suited if we assume equal card distribution preflop. So, in conclusion, we want to fold the hands that are often dominated, like ace-5 suited, like queen-10 suited, and we need to understand that this is very different in practice than reality. Alright guys, this is going to be a multi-part series. We're going to be comparing GTO Preflop ranges to MDA Preflop to see where we can gain an edge over the solver. If you enjoy this type of content, please give me a like, please give me a subscribe. New video every single day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.